Hi folks, Kevin Vannorsdel here again with you talking about Christian case making or Christian apologetics. Hope you're having a good week so far. Today's topic is the Apologetics Top 10. This is something I threw together a while back, and I think it's what I consider to be, if I can get this to share properly here, what I consider to be the top 10 most important things that somebody should know or remember if they want to get involved in learning how best to make a case for Christianity with other people, especially with non-believers. So in no particular order, let's just jump right in. This is the Apologetics Top 10 according to me. uh, we have one point before all the points. And this is very important in my opinion. I mentioned in my first video, I'm just a regular guy. And one thing that keeps me going when I get confused or in too deep or thinking that, boy, I'm never going to understand this stuff, you need to force yourself to not feel stupid as you learn the various topics involved in understanding how to make a case for Christianity. We learn in small chunks over long periods of time. So what I tell myself and other people, just if you're watching a lecture or watching a debate or talking to somebody, in any time when we're trying to learn something new, be happy with yourself when you get just a little small tidbit of information. You'll get more as time goes on. Don't worry about it. Keep your expectations low. This stuff is not going to come to you immediately and make total sense. It's the same way with anything. We learn in small chunks over long periods of time. All right, jumping right into the first actual point of the top 10. Ask at least half a dozen questions in every conversation. This applies to when you're engaged with somebody about really any topic, but especially when you're engaged in something that can become heated. If you were on Facebook or hopefully maybe doing this live with somebody, and you're trying to show them why Christianity is relevant or why it's real or important, be sure to ask at least half a dozen questions in every conversation. This comes from Hugh Hewitt's book. You might know Hugh Hewitt. He's been on many presidential debates as a moderator. He's a national radio talk show host and an author. He has a book called In But Not Of. I really like the book. It's kind of a daily reading, I think, for the course of a whole year, just things that he's found relevant in his life to be a good Christian person, but it's not all Christian stuff. So one of them is ask these questions of people. We're going to talk about this more actually in an upcoming video. I show Lieutenant Columbo here. For those of you older folks, you might know who this guy is. And you can't click this, but we'll get to it. He's a classic questioner. And asking questions is a very good way to sort of maneuver in conversation. You can make points by asking questions in a very unobtrusive way, unoffensive way. And we'll talk about that more, so just keep this in the back of your mind for now. Always be gentle and respectful. This is one of our key verses that we take as apologists as sort of our marching orders. 1 Peter 3:15, we talked about this before in the last video, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason. This is a command to us, all of us Christians. Be ready to explain why it is you believe this stuff, but do so with gentleness and respect. Here I show a famous atheist. I show him, it's kind of a funny picture because he's dressed up as a Christian priest or something, but he's definitely not a Christian. But he's very respectful. He has one of these English accents and always comes across respectfully in his conversations with people. I shouldn't say always, but oftentimes. And so sort of I put a little irony here in the picture, but there are a number of people you probably know that are always come across as respectful. Use them as your role model, as somebody to sort of think about when you're engaged in what may become a heated conversation with somebody. Always be gentle and respectful. Do not let apologetics distract you from the study of the Bible and theology. Okay, this can easily happen to people who like facts and figures and like to learn how to effectively argue a point with somebody. We can get lost in the techniques and the strategies and the maneuvering But what's most important, all of this has to be motivated and undergirded by our actual study and understanding of what the Bible actually says. God has spoken. And I like this quote: the amount of faith you can have in God is directly proportional to the amount of knowledge you have about God. Knowledge comes from the Bible, Romans 10:17. So again, the amount of faith you can have in God is directly proportional to the amount of knowledge you have about God. Think about that quote for a bit. See if you agree with that. Um, Faith, a good definition of faith is trust based on reason. And so the amount of faith you can have depends upon the amount of knowledge you have about how God operates and what he does. And that's what theology teaches us about. Watch your motivating factors. Sometimes I get into a conversation with somebody and I just want to win the argument. And it may not be an argument like some kind of a fist fight or anything, a verbal fist fight, of course. It may just be that we're talking and I want to feel like I'm the one who knows the most. Not a good motivating factor. Be passionate about apologetics because you believe that hell is real. We talked about that in our last conversation. We need to be motivated by love. A lot of folks like to say that all we really need to have is love. You just need to show people love. Um, I got this from somebody else, another speaker. He says, remember, you can't out nice a Mormon. We need to have more than just love for people when it comes to sharing our faith and sharing Christianity with others. You're never going to be a nicer, more loving person than the Mormons, okay? I hope that's not too offensive. Uh, but so you can't out nice those folks. We need to have something more. We need to have the knowledge, and we need to have some tactics and techniques and some data to share with people to convince them that, or to help them learn, I should say, that Christianity is real and true. Okay, be willing to doubt your doubts. If you're the type that has doubts, like I am, doubt them as much as you doubt anything else. Does it make sense? Be willing to doubt your doubts. Okay, anybody can just throw down an assertion. You might be talking with somebody or reading something or watching a debate or something, and somebody just throws down this idea. Well, I think the universe came into existence by intelligent beings outside of our solar system, like aliens. Okay, sure, that could happen. I mean, anybody can say that, but what is the reason behind that? Does it make any sense? Is it likely? Um, so just because somebody makes an assertion and gives you some doubt, be willing to doubt that as well. Hopefully that point makes sense. Okay. Now, speaking of this whole notion of aliens creating the universe or whatever, this is sort of a weird point. Um, Stick with me here, see if you can buy into this. There is no certainty, or another way to say this is extraordinary claims do not require extraordinary evidence. Extraordinary claims do not require extraordinary evidence. What do I mean by that? It's been said that, oh, you guys think that Jesus actually died and then came back to life again with some sort of supernatural event. That's an extraordinary claim. Wow, science cannot support that. That's outside the realm of anything that we observe in this world, they might say. You're going to have to if you're going to make that claim, if you, the Christian, are going to make this claim that some guy actually came back to life and therefore I should actually believe what he says, you're going to have some incredible evidence to support such an incredible claim. That's actually now true. Extraordinary claims do not require extraordinary evidence. That's too much of a burden for anyone to bear. Only adequate evidence is required. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming session, so stay tuned. But in general, we need to talk a little bit about the amount of proof that a person needs to make a decision based on information. I like to say, abandon any hope of proof beyond the shadow of a doubt. Seek to find the best explanation for the world we experience. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is plenty. So surely in the court of law, our standard of evidence or standard of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's good enough. Basically, you can't, the, almost anything. I mean, we could be living in the Matrix, okay? And this might all be some kind of crazy dream. It's possible. It's very, very, very unlikely. But to prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt is too high of a standard, too high of a burden of proof. So cling to this notion of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's just try to find the most likely explanation for the way things are, and use that to guide our thoughts and decisions. I like this one. During an engagement, keep your goals modest. So if you're talking with a family member over Easter, over Christmas, and this family member might not be a believer, you might have this notion, boy, I want to really help this guy or girl see that Christianity is true and it's real. I'm concerned about my brother's eternal destiny or something like that, and I'd like to, convert him, get him to say the sinner's prayer or whatever you have in mind. Um, we have to be prepared to be able to be a good ambassador for the Lord. But God, it's God that's doing the work. I've already mentioned, I should have said this earlier. I've already mentioned a couple times things like convincing people, changing their minds, or winning an argument or something like that, of course, in a gentle way. But look, God is the one that actually is doing the work here. All we are is his ambassadors. We are here to represent the Lord uh, in the most attractive and winsome way that we can. So just keep your goals modest. God is going. If somebody is going to have a change of heart about God or Jesus, it's going to be God that does that. We are just here to sort of clear away other barriers and other roadblocks that might be keeping these folks from listening closer to what the Lord's saying. So one of my mentors has this little saying, just place a stone in his or her shoe. Keep your goals modest. My goal is, in most conversations or engagements, is basically, I want to just stick a stone in the guy's shoe so that when he walks away, he's kind of like, something that Kevin said is kind of bugging me, kind of rubbing me the wrong way. And I wanted to sort of keep him up at night a little bit, so to speak, in a nice way. Uh, no one changes their mind during an argument. That's my claim. If you're arguing with somebody and you just want to win the argument, forget about it. People don't change their mind in the heat of battle. Uh, People, hopefully, you can just leave the stone in their shoe. They'll think about it later. It'll bug them and irritate them enough until they perhaps have a change of heart. There's a saying that goes, "You can't start a fire with wet wood." This allegory or this analogy is sort of like, uh, if you have a bunch of wood, you want to start a campfire, and all the wood's been sitting out in the rain for a while, it's soaking wet, you're going to have a real hard time starting that fire. But if you can find a couple pieces of dry tinder and put it in the fire ring, get it going, and then line up the wet wood around it, let the heat from the small fire in the middle dry out the wet wood slowly over time. And then when it's ready, you can throw that into the fire and get a blaze going. These things sort of take time. So just if you're encountering somebody that's being resistant or is always sort of argumentative with you about your silly Christian beliefs or whatever, don't worry about it. Just stay warm, work on drying them out slowly over time, and eventually, Lord willing, if he would like to do that, the Lord will change that person's heart, and they'll blaze into flame for him. Okay, develop a sound viewpoint on whether or not you think there is adequate evidence for the claim that Jesus actually lived on the earth and then died and then lived again. As I'm recording this, we're just getting done with Easter. I like to ask this question, what is the big deal about the resurrection anyway? There's a book called Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace. I think I might have mentioned that earlier. The resurrection is fundamental to what we believe. It's the miraculous resurrection of Jesus, the supernatural event where a guy died and came back to life that authenticates, that gives authenticity to the Christian worldview. We're in a very unique situation. Other religions don't have that. They don't have this miraculous event that is, by the way, attestable historically and scientifically to actually have happened. We're going to talk about that in the future. But what we have going for us as Christians is we have a large body of evidence that supports the notion that this actually happened. A guy died and came back to life again. And if that did happen, he's worth listening to. He's something very valuable. It's a very valuable message that a person that went through that uh, that we should listen to. So the resurrection truly is a fundamental thing for us as Christians. And if you're going to just study one thing to make yourself a better Christian case maker, a better ambassador for Christ, I would say it should be the resurrection and whether or not you can get behind the notion that it actually happened and there's evidence to support that claim. Okay, I think we're getting to the end here. Do not use as a reason because the Bible says so. You know, that sort of thing may have worked in days gone by, where you can open a Bible and ask somebody if they know if they died tonight, if they would go to heaven or not. And you could show them in the Bible that Jesus died for their sins, and if they put their trust in Him, that they will be saved. Those things are true that I just said. But somehow it seems that culture has changed over the course of the last number of years. And just showing somebody in the Bible stuff is not always going to work. I don't know how to say that really clear enough. I don't want to discount the power of the Bible. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that somebody who doesn't care about the Bible doesn't care about the Bible. So we need to have reasons in our back pockets or be able to engage people who don't believe in the Bible with information outside the context of the Bible to get them more interested in the Bible itself. I hope that makes sense. Okay, the last one, practice. Now, I don't know. Thankfully, my wife's not here right now because she hates when I play this video, and I'm not going to play it. But, you may have seen this video. I think it's super funny to watch, but that's sort of aside. The point here is that the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle. Occasionally, I like to have practice sessions with people when I can get them to agree to do it, where we basically role play engagements. Like, for example, I might be a person. Oh yeah, you Christians, you think that there's actually an absolute truth out there. There's no such thing as absolute truth. Absolute truth is a myth. And then I like to have the other person sort of try to engage with me on that and see how far we can get. That's just practice. The more you practice, the more you sweat and practice, the less you bleed in battle. You can practice in your mind. You can practice with others. You can watch others in action, like on radio shows, video debates. There's lots of debates out there where you can see Christians debating with non-believers, and you can learn a lot from those sorts of things. You can read, obviously, but practice is a very important point. But don't worry about practicing. It might be a little intimidating at first, but the more you learn, the more things we go through and talk about together, I think you'll see that practice will become easier and easier thing to think about doing. So there you have it. That's the Apologetics Top 10, according to me at least, for what that's worth. If you have any questions or comments about this content, feel free to get that to me. I'd be happy to engage with you on that, and we'll see you next time.